Okay, thank you so much. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Firstly, I highly appreciate my supervisor, Dr. Hadabizada, and my advisor, Dr. Himati, for trying the best for me. And I thank Dr. Misawi for pay attention for my thesis. Firstly, my thesis, the title of my thesis is Critical Thinking and Critical Thinking Development and Investigation on English as a Foreign Language Teachers' Conception and Practice at High Schools in Soleimani City. Actually, if you want to talk about the critical thinking, I think this subject is not so easy for talking about and writing about because actually it's philosophical and psychological or an educational subject. So I want to introduce my thesis, the introduction about my thesis. In a recent survey by the American Association of Universities and Colleges, 74% of respondents indicated that critical thinking was a core learning objective for the campus general education program. While there is a general agreement among all the professionals that critical thinking skills are important, but yet there's a lack of clarity what exactly critical thinking is. Actually preparing students to be able to think critically is one of the major goals for many professionals in the education program. Actually, as a teachers, they have to prepare the students to think critically. For example, not making them, for example, giving them the opportunities for memorizing the titles with unconscious learning, and they have to have conscious learning, and the students have to be learned consciously, not unconsciously. Or the teachers should have the active teaching style for themselves. And critical thinking is one of the factors actually to give the activity, to give the more active to the process of teaching. If you want to refer to Socrates' period, Plato's teacher, actually, at his time, he talks about critical thinking. He discusses the subjects with asking questions for the students, and he said that the critical thinking with knowledge will remain in the mind, more than and rather than transferring the knowledge by the teachers. And the development of critical thinking through education is frequently discussed as a significant and necessary goal. And recent trends in the education domain, especially language learning and teaching, emphasize the importance of critical thinking skills and the role of critical thinking, because actually it will be the factor to the teachers to make them do academic and, for example, to make them successful academically. And the primary purpose of meaningful education is to teach teachers the higher order thinking skills. Moreover, if you want to talk about the conscious learning, as I said before, the active teaching with a focus on critical thinking skills might result the teachers to make them, the teachers, successful in their teaching. Actually, critical thinking is the factor to have the active teaching style. And of course, if, for example, the teachers use critical thinking in his style of teaching, of course, it will be the active teaching style. And language, if we want to talk about the language learning strategies and specific actions taken by the learner to make learning easier, faster, more enjoyable, and more self-directed, more effective, and more transferable to new situations. I mean, if you want to the teachers, if they use language learning strategies, if they use the strategies in their learning language, these learning strategies, make the process of learning easier and faster, easier, enjoyable, more enjoyable. So, on the other hand, there is a relationship, there is a link between the critical thinking and language learning strategies. According to Carey, 1999, English language learning classroom might be an ideal place for critical integrated activities where social empowerment can be fostered through challenging and questioning. I mean, if you want to talk about the learning classroom, in the classroom the teachers should should integrate the different activities in the class by asking questions. When the teachers ask questions, the students actually, and they can answer the questions critically. I mean, the critical thinking should be, enter the classes for the students. Although the classroom setting is the best place for the development of critical thinking skills for English language teachers, the combination of critical thinking with the four macro skills is still a challenge. And so we have to, we have four macro skills. We should combine with the critical thinking, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. We have to combine with the critical thinking. And the purpose of my study, actually there are many purposes of my study and of this thesis. The first one is, this critical thinking. I think critical thinking will be the factor to change the spoon-feeding education paradigm. Because there are many students, they memorize, in the Middle East, or especially in my country, they memorize the things or the texts without thinking about. And it means in a passive learning, not an active learning. So critical thinking will be the factor to change this spoon-feeding paradigm. And of course, there are many teachers, as myself, I thought that at that time before, finding the title, I thought that many teachers, they make a business by having the pamphlets. Pamphlets is, I think this topic and this critical thinking will be the factor, to reduce the pamphlets, because the pamphlets is so dangerous for the students. Because when the teacher, make a pamphlet, it means the teacher, instead of the students, they have to read the textbooks. When they teach the text, instead of the students read the text, instead of the students think, instead of the students paraphrase the texts, and instead of the students write down. Just for example, the pamphlets will be prepared for the students. They have to, or they are obliged to memorize. So we have to remove this style of having pamphlets by critical thinking. Critical thinking is one of the factors to remove and to change the spoon-feeding paradigm. And critical thinking is used to help the teachers to become critical thinker. And they in return will help their future students to develop their critical thinking skills. The methodology of my thesis, methods of data collection, using field studies and articles or books, sites, and statistical analysis, data analysis method, gathering questionnaire and analyzing data by